Unfortunately, Israel has a strategy that applies not only to Syria, but to all neighboring actors in the region. We have always said that Israel must abandon this strategy while there still is time. Israel has put forward a plan using the Druze as a pretext. Of course, neither we nor the countries in the region nor other countries should remain silent about this. While it was expected that the central government would intervene in the region without taking sides to calm the situation, Israel strikes Damascus and announces that it doesn't want the Syrian central government to have soldiers in the region. I'm warning all groups in Syria not to use chaos for their own tactical gains. They have to keep in mind that while taking these small tactical steps, they will head towards a major strategic disaster. No group should engage in actions designed to divide Syria. There is much to discuss through diplomacy. Everything can be discussed, and we are discussing everything with all groups. But if they go beyond that and resort to violence to divide and destabilize, we will perceive this as a direct threat to our national security and intervene.
Security analyst and non-residential fellow at the Atlantic Council, joining us live from Ankara. Very good to have you on the program. You heard Hakan Fidan there saying that if these groups resort to violence, Turkey will perceive this as a direct threat to its national security and intervene. How should we interpret that? What would such an intervention look like?
I mean, it would obviously be a military kind, because what we have to be clear here, what we have seen since the fall of the Assad regime is that Turkey basically gave the YPG-dominated Syrian Democratic Forces an olive branch, reached out to them and said, if you integrate into the Syrian state, we will not go after you by military means, as there was no longer anymore the Russian protection and the protection of the Assad regime for the SDF. And we have seen that the United States of America has reduced its level of troops presence in Syria vehemently and is only present in 3 military bases. Soon it will be reduced to only 1 military base next to the Iraqi border. So the Turkish side is trying to push the SDF with these statements into being logical and to being rational and to accept to get integrated into the Syrian state. Otherwise, Turkey has to protect Syria's territorial integrity, not only for the sake of Turkey's national security, but also for the sake of Syria.
So in what way would you say that violence in Syria is a direct threat to Turkey's national security? Is that the same thing for all over Syria?
I mean, we have to see what happened recently. I mean, there were some military movements by the SDF, and in the past we have seen cross-border shelling. We have seen in 2015, if you may remember, that many militants from Syria crossed into Turkey, infiltrated into Turkey, and there were urban warfare inside the cities of Turkey, which was a huge issue at that time, and Turkey had a huge casualties. And we have seen several terror attacks being conducted by terrorists coming in from Syria into Turkey, which were members of the YPG, and killing Turkish civilians and random. So this is a huge security threat. And furthermore, as you know, there is the process of the disarmament and disbandment of the PKK altogether. And if the Syrian side of this process fails, the entire process can fail, because Syria is the most important piece in the puzzle for Turkey to achieve a terror-free future. And therefore, Turkey is reminding the SDF of its military pressure, because in recent time, we have seen that the SDF was reluctant to make concessions towards Damascus and was actually increasing its negotiation position and its demands towards Damascus, as they felt that Turkey is not going to launch any more military operations. And Turkey is reminding them, no, you have to act. And there were recent news that Turkey and the United States of America have given the SDF a deadline of 30 days. We have to see what will happen once this deadline is reached.
So apart from a possible military intervention that you discussed here in the beginning, what role do you see Turkey having in the stability and unity of Syria going forward?
I mean, Turkey is the main supporter and backer of the new Syrian government. We have to clearly assess that without Turkey's huge diplomatic, economic, military, and political support, it would be really difficult for Syria to preserve its territorial integrity. We are seeing that Iran as well as Israel are trying to destabilize Syria, and we see that there is a growing Turkish-Arab alliance to help Syria to stand on its own feet. And we see that Turkish companies are investing in Syria. We see that Turkey is trying to help Syria overcome its energy issue by providing gas and electricity. We see that there are joint ventures between the Qataris, the Turks, and the Americans to rebuild Syria's energy infrastructure. So Turkey has been a major supporter of Syria to be able to be a stable country again. And this is not only because of the Turkish regional role, that Turkey believes that regional states should take matters into their own hands, but this is also due to the own interests of Turkey, because we have approximately 2.6 million Syrian refugees still inside Turkey, and Turkey wants them to go back to their home country voluntarily and dignified.
Omer Ozkizilcik, thank you so much for your time and your analysis here on the program.